Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I think this is a good little story I can finally tell to the internet. So, I lived in a haunted house for a little over 10 years, I think. I have terrible memory. But, when I was about 10 or 11, my family moved to a nice house in South Georgia in an unincorporated town, which means it's the middle of nowhere. And we had about 5 to 7 acres of land. And on said land was what we are going to call an indentured servant's house. It was, falling apart and stuff like that. We're pretty sure people have passed away and been buried on the property as well. I know the old owner had a heart attack on the front porch when he was trying to give the male kid some candy, because that's what everybody knew him for. He was a really sweet man. But anyways, when we were checking out the house and see if my parents wanted to buy it, what's ironic is we took a picture there with a old ghost camera. It puts fake ghosts in the pictures once you get them developed, and like I said, that's very, very ironic. But anyways, to the story. So the first incident was I was laying down on the couch in one of our living rooms, because we had like a sitting room in a living room, old house, really strange. And I'm hearing somebody walk around in our attic. And our attic is like basically an unfinished upstairs, and it only locks from the outside. As if you're walking up the stairs and you're facing the door, it only locks from the outside. If you are inside the attic, you can't lock yourself in there or anything like that. If you try to close the door, it's going to kind of swing back open. And on the outside, where the locks are, there was about 7 or 6 different locks going up the door, which was very strange. But I digress. I'm laying on a couch talking to my friend, and I'm hearing someone walk around up there. And instinctively, I think it's my younger brother, because we're the only two home, and I'm hollering for him to come down. And that's when I hear him holler from, saying holler a lot, again, South Georgia. I hear him yell from his bedroom, which is on the first floor with me where I am, that he's not up there. So I panic, call my mom, who's working as a dispatcher at a police department, and she tells me to go outside with him, walk around, and see if we can see anybody up there, and then go to the neighbors and get her to help us, basically. We walk around, and I thought I saw, the footsteps were enough, but I thought I saw someone just trying to close the blinds a little bit. So we go over to the neighbor, she comes back over, and my dad's actually pulling up. I guess my mom called him at the time we're walking back over, and he has his service firearm with him, and he goes up the stairs to the attic where all the locks are locked, meaning if somebody is in there, they should be locked in. The windows are painted shut, so there's no really prying them open, and we would have noticed if that would have happened. Nobody was in there at all. Nothing moved. No sign of anybody at all. So then, let's see what's the next one that was encountered. My mother, no one believed me and my brother for a little while, but my mother one time told us she swore she saw a little boy sitting in my brother's room while my brother's in the living room, sitting on the ground, kind of looking at the TV that was in there, which is completely off. Lights are off, but she saw an outline of a boy. We all kind of brushed it off, and it was like, that's weird. But then, my dad comes home from work. Nobody there, nothing. And we have a set of glass French doors. And through those French doors is that living room I was sitting in when I heard the footsteps. And in that same living room is the stairs that lead up to the unfinished second-story attic. So French doors are closed, so he's looking through glass, and he sees a full-body apparition, basically. He said he saw a man walking up those stairs and turning the corner to go into the attic. So he grabs his gun, has it drawn and everything, and he busts through, goes up, door's locked. Nobody could have gone in. You can't lock the doors behind you like that. So, yeah, really scary. Then we have another incident with my mother. So after that one with my dad, my mom was walking past my brother's room where she saw the first apparition, and she almost pees herself. Because as she's walking by the doorway, standing in the doorway, is the shadow of a man, just standing there. And she walks past it, basically screams and steps back, and there's nothing there at all. And then the last one that really holds any fear is when I came home from college. So this is years after the first incident. After I came home from college, everything's basically quieted around. We've made it a running joke in the family, like, hey, if they're here and they're not bothering us, we don't bother them, we don't acknowledge them, you know? We just coexist. And everything was quiet for a while. Except the fact that my brother got my old room, and, excuse me, because of my dad's sleep apnea, he's got my brother's room, because he has a machine and stuff now. So where does that leave me to sleep with any kind of privacy? You guessed it, the attic. So we have my little bed and everything up there. I've kind of turned it somewhat into a room. And I'm facing the wall one morning, just waking up, scrolling through my phone, and I thought I hear my dad walk up behind me, coming to wake me up, get me out of bed or whatever. So I wake up, smile on my face, and there's nobody there. It sounded like work boots stepping across the wood floor, and almost everything kind of echoes throughout the attic because it's unfinished, and it's like insulin and wood everywhere, and there was nobody there. My parents have since moved out of Georgia. I have since moved out of Georgia, and my brother has since moved out of Georgia. We're gonna keep it that way.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I have a ton of ghost stories, but the scariest thing by far to ever happen to me happened at my mom's house. This happened a couple of years ago. And just for a little bit of backstory, my dad and my sister and me can kind of sense like spirits and stuff like that. They can do it way more than me. I think it like faded off of me or something because I wasn't really playing with that shit. But you know, it's neither here or there. Back to the story though. So this is just like a random ass day, and it's like I'm laying in the bed tired, finna go to sleep. I finally fall asleep and I end up opening my eyes and I can't move. I have never had sleep paralysis before, and I'm telling you guys, I know I was not asleep, but it was paralysis. So I'm laying in the bed, eyes open, looking side to side, and my door is open, and I'm like, what the fuck? Because I feel like something is there, but I cannot move my head. So I just closed my eyes, and I think I dozed back off because the next time that I woke up, I was laying on my side, staring right at the door. And if y'all know what sleep paralysis is, when you can't move, that shit is scary. So while I'm up, like I'm staring at the door, I can't move, I feel something crawl up on the bed by my feet. Keep in mind, you guys, I can't see what the fuck is down there. I just felt something crawl on the bed, crawl on my feet, and I felt something grab onto my back and scream in my ear. And when I say it was the most blood-wrenching, heart-squeezing scream I ever heard, it was literally like, ah! So me being there, I'm so fucking scared. So I muster up enough strength to like throw my shoulders over, and when I threw my shoulders over and it felt like I hit the bed, I woke up and came straight up, and I was like, hell no. So on this day, I had to pick up my sister from school. When I tell y'all, I got up out of that motherfucking house and went and sat outside my sister's school for like an hour and a half to wait for her to get out. I was not sitting in that house by myself. What the hell? So that's not the end of the story. Later on that day, I was doing makeup on my floor in the bedroom. Y'all know how y'all put a mirror on the floor and you just have like a little lamp at you and you're just doing your makeup. So I had my mirror on the floor facing the door to where I can see through at the door, because usually when I'm doing it, my mom or something will come in and talk to me and I'll talk to her through the mirror. I was just doing my makeup, not even paying attention. I look up to the door and there was a lady in a black dress standing there, and she just like whoosh went past the door, and I was like, what the fuck? At this point, I'm just like, I don't even want to deal with this shit no more, so I just got up and closed my door. Later on, I asked my dad, I was telling him about the whole story that happened, and he said that I had a witch riding my back. Thanks, Dad. It's not like I stay home by myself majority of the time. Thanks for telling me that there was a witch on my back. But other than that one day, I've never had sleep paralysis again, and I've never seen that lady in the black dress. Now, there has been a couple of other spirits that I've seen in my house because, I mean, they're just always there running back and forth. And y'all, the funniest thing is when it happened, I was literally like, I'm the righteousness of God of Christ. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. I'm the righteousness of God of Christ. I can do. I was saying that back to back to back to back. I was like, this, whatever the fuck this is, you was not gonna grab me and drag me no fucking where. Let me tell you that. But yeah, that was like the first and last time that's ever happened to me, and that was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. Being in a situation where you can't move and you can literally feel something grab onto you, hell no.
I fell down the rabbit hole of this thread, and now I have to add my own story. So, for context, never met any of my grandparents. They all died before I was born. My paternal grandmother came the closest. She died 6 weeks before I was born. So, I was like 7-ish, like 6, 7, or 8, at my dad's house, and I get up one night to go to the bathroom. And so as I come out of my room and turn down the hallway, it's a split-level house, so the foyer is just a couple steps down, maybe 10, 15 feet away. And as I flip the light on, almost like she appeared with the light, my grandmother appears. She is down on the lower level, and since I'm so young, I'm basically standing eye level with her. And she's kind of looking at me, almost like looking through me, like she was kind of just like taking me in. It was a very weird feeling. Didn't feel very welcoming. That's another thing. But I saw her. It's like she was there in the flesh. It wasn't like she was floating or just didn't seem to completely appear. She was there. And so immediately I'm like, bathroom can wait. I turn back and I just glance away for a second and she's gone. So go back to bed. Don't bring it up for years. Years later, I bring it up to my dad and say, hey, I think I saw grandma, like at one point. And I tell him about it and he says, are you sure you saw her in that spot? I say, yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's the only place I could have seen her if she was standing on that floor, that level of the house. That was the spot where she had a heart attack and died. I didn't even know how she died, so I could not have guessed. And I think it was in that same, span of a couple years that I had seen, nobody's gonna believe me on this, but I had woken up one night to see this shadow standing, very tall, kind of wide, broad shadow, standing at the top foot of my bed. And it's not like sleep paralysis or anything. I can move. I'm not dreaming. And all I can make out are these two glowing red eyes and a wide hat brim. But it wasn't like I was looking at a silhouette of an actual person. It was more like a two-dimensional thing. There was no dimension to his brim or anything. But of course, I'm scared, so I just cover myself with the covers and go back to sleep, or try my best. Years later, of course, I'm going down this rabbit hole on creepypastas on the internet. And what do I come across but the urban legend of the Hat Man?
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
Alright, well, I got two of them. One's in my grandparents' house and one's in my aunt's house. So one night, I'm in the basement sleeping at my grandpa's house, and I'm asleep. And all of a sudden I feel something tapping in the middle of my forehead like this. And I think I was in my 20s when this happened, or in my late teens, 19s. But anyway, I feel this thing just tapping, and it's doing this on my forehead while I'm in bed. And I'm the only one downstairs in that particular room in the basement of my grandparents' house. And so I refused to open up my eyes. And I'm just as soon as I woke up, I didn't open up my eyes. I continuously felt it. And, I whipped myself back into the bed and covered my face with the pillow and just whispered, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. Please go away. Please go away. Leave me alone. Please go away. And I'd fallen back asleep. And it didn't bother me the rest of the night. But we've always had, you could always hear weird things going on, bumping in the night at my grandparents' house. And my grandma would always say the house is haunted by the ghost of Philip, which was my deceased uncle who died in infancy. And if you ever say anything to my grandmother, she would have been like, well, that's just Philip playing around. And so we always chalked it up to Philip. Now, my second story happened later in life when I had my child in 2016, because he was 6 years old. And so me and my older sister had driven down to my aunt's house, who lived in southern Illinois. And this house, they had built it on some land themselves, And so we had went down there, just us and our 2 kids. And we get there by the time it's nighttime. And by the time we get there, like I said, it's night. And so we get downstairs. My sister had already put her son to sleep in the furthest room down the hall. It's like the very last room down the hall. And we all go to the basement, me, my aunt, my son, and my uncle. My uncle's messing around, fidgeting with some shit off in the corner, his pool table or some shit. And so it's me, my aunt, and my sister all sitting at this table, just, chalking it up, talking, and, and then my son's over here laying on the couch or something. And so while we're sitting there, and you hear somebody walking, like these boot steps, and to me it legitimately sounded like heavy boot steps, and you hear them walking down the hall, and just one by one, and my aunt has wooden floors, so it was like, distinguished, there's no, the ceiling's unfinished, so it's just wood, where the wooden floors are, so you hear it. And so, and it's walking down the hall, and it's, you could hear it just gradually walking to about where we're at. And we're probably like in the middle would be the living room upstairs. And it's pretty close to the front of the house. And so we hear it, walking, and then it stops, and it walks again, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of continues this, little pattern. And, we just kind of look at my aunt like, who's upstairs, after a minute. And my aunt just was like, well, ain't nobody upstairs besides, my nephew. And like I said, my nephew's little at that time. He's like 1.5, 2 years old. He's in a playpen. He can't climb out himself at that time. And so we're still kind of listening to it, walking. And then we look at my aunt again. I was like, well, are you sure nobody's upstairs? And she's like, no, nobody's upstairs. We haven't heard this for a while. And I'm like, what do you mean you haven't heard it for a while? And she goes, well, since the twins were little. And the twins are my cousin's kids, her grandkids. And they're probably, at that time, they were probably like 10 or 11. And so she's like, we haven't heard it since the twins have gotten, grown up pretty much, since they were little. And so, and she goes, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just Philip. And we're like, and me and my sister kind of just look at each other like, Philip my ass. Like, and so then all of a sudden you hear my nephew screaming. And it's not just normal, crying. It's like bloody murder or something wrong screaming. And me and my sister kind of look at each other and look at my sister like, well, girl, I ain't fucking with that. I ain't going up there. But I'll have your back at the bottom of the stairs if I need to come up real quick. And so my sister's walking up these big-ass stairs that my aunt has to the first floor, and I'm at the bottom, and I'm watching my sister slowly just, ascend up these stairs, and as soon as her foot hits the top stair, you hear this thing, and I swear you hear it run all the way back to the bedroom where my nephew is, and my sister doesn't hear it run, and because I asked her when she came back down. But anyway, she doesn't hear it run. And we can hear her walking down the hall. And you can hear Colton calming down. And then you hear her walking back down the hall. And she gets downstairs. And I'm like, well, did you hear the thing run? And she's like, no, I didn't hear anything up there. I didn't see anything up there. And she goes, the only thing that happened was when I picked up Colton, he kept staring at this particular corner and would not stop staring and screaming at it. And so, it was really, I don't know, it was really strange, And we just never heard that before in my aunt's house. And like the whole thing with my uncle who had passed in infancy, it always bothers me, because I'm like, well, he would have passed when he was, a couple of days old. He was, not big enough, and to be walking like a grown-ass man across these floors, and so who knows? Maybe it was him, maybe it wasn't. And I still haven't figured out who was tapping me on my damn head at my grandparents' house. I know it wasn't nobody else creeping about in that basement. But anyway, that's my story.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Hi, so something really weird happened to me a number of years ago, and I haven't talked much about it outside of my family just because it's one of those things that happened, and I honestly couldn't believe that it did. And if other people had not been there with me, I still don't know if I would believe that it happened. But it's a long story, so buckle up. So if you know anything about me and my mom's side of the family, you know that my mom's side of the family has experienced a lot of death, a lot of tragedy. Both of my mom's brothers died at the age of 38. Very kind of unexpectedly, they became sick. My grandparents both died in their 50s, long history of sickness and illness. And so our family cemetery grew very fast because of this. So this was probably around 2013, 2014. My mom and her two surviving sisters decided to get together. It had been a number of years since we had all been together and gone to the cemetery and done like a floral arrangement for their brothers that had passed away and also their parents. I hadn't seen my cousins in a long time, and I really wanted to spend some time with them, so I decided we could make like a family outing, and I decided to tag along. Something really important to note about this story, though, is there's no cell phone service at the cemetery. It is the middle of absolute nowhere. There's nothing to walk to except a creepy old church and nothing but miles and miles of farmland. And it's always been this way. It's been this way as long as I can remember. There's no cell phone service, and this is important for later in the story. So I'm sitting in the back of my aunt's Toyota, and we're driving down the road, and my cousin, who is around my age, pulls out her camera that she had just gotten as a gift, and she's like, oh, this is so cool, check it out. And this was, a long time ago, so a digital camera was a big deal. So we're sitting there playing with it. The battery is full, and, we're just taking goofy photos, whatever. And so as we get to the cemetery, she goes to take out her camera again as we approach some of the graves because we wanted some photos of our parents out there, and it won't turn on. And we both have this moment, we're looking at each other like, why won't it turn on? So we pull the batteries out, we're fiddling with it, and it will not work. It just says no battery, no battery. Like, okay, so whatever, we put that away. A little bit into the trip, one of my oldest cousin, well, she's not really my oldest, but oldest cousin present on this trip, is complaining she cannot find her cell phone anywhere. And the last person who had it would have been her son, who was probably around 7 or 8 years old at the time. And he's telling us, I don't know where the phone is. I don't know where the phone is. And there's no cell phone service, so nobody can call it and figure out where it is, right? So there's a fence that separates where you park your car and where the cemetery begins. Our family plots are right on the fence line, or at least very close to it. We're all inside this fence. Nobody has been outside of this fence. And I know this because I'm always the observer. I'm always watching people and seeing what they're doing. While my mom and her sisters are over there fiddling with flower arrangements, my cousin and I are kind of sitting on the gravestone, and I'm watching my cousins to see what they're doing. Nobody walks outside of that fence. I'm telling you, there's no way. No one can find this phone. And all of a sudden, my mom's oldest sister, her phone starts making the weirdest noise. It was the weirdest beeping sound. It was not a sound that was programmed into the phone. It was not a downloaded sound. I don't know how to describe it other than it just wasn't her ringtone. She honestly didn't even know it was her phone at first because of how weird the sound was. When she held up her phone, there was 2 really alarming things that I noticed. First, the phone should not have been ringing. Even though it was showing that someone was calling, there was no service in the corner. Didn't make any sense. The second thing that surprised us all is we're standing in a circle watching this phone ring. There's no one else out there. And the phone that is calling hers is the phone that is missing. And this is the first point in the trip I start to feel really uneasy. Like, I'm trying to leave at this point. I'm like, Mom, like, I don't feel good about being here. Like, I really just want to go. But nobody else seems to be listening to me. Even though I'm like dying to get out of here. I know something is wrong. And in the midst of them not listening to me, what does my aunt do? She answers the phone. It's not a person on the other end of it. It is like this crackling sound, like someone like popping some like rocks or rolling rocks with their hand. And my mom and her sisters start crying, and they're saying like, this is our dad calling us. This is our dad. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is nobody else scared? At this point, I'm ready to walk out of this place and just leave. Like, I literally head to the car. And as I'm walking out of this car, there's like this little covered pavilion that's like kind of by the entrance of the cemetery on the other side of the fence where the cars are parked. And sitting on that pavilion is my cousin's phone, face down, locked. Nobody was out there to have called from that phone to my aunt's number. When my cousin unlocks that phone, there is no record of a phone call. There's nothing on it. It says no service. No phone call has been made. How is that possible? I don't know. I literally bolted to the car. I said, I'm done with this. I'm so done. I'm out of here. I would not be sitting here crying saying it's my dad, because I just didn't feel good about it. Maybe I was just easily spooked. I don't know, but I'm leaving. Deuces. I climb back in my aunt's Camry, and we're driving down the road leaving at this point. They've had their waterworks show. I'm pretty shook. Like, I'm not feeling too good. And my cousin's over there still fiddling with her camera. As we get down the road, she's like, I still don't understand why this camera doesn't work. She goes to turn it on, and it says full battery. I've always been a pretty anxious person, and I've also been told I'm a pretty big overreactor. But I don't know. In that situation, what would you guys do? Hey, so if you're watching this, that probably means you saw my ghost video. If you like that story, I'm really glad that you guys were able to find some joy in my trauma. And I actually have been talking about this a little bit more with my family recently since the video went kind of viral. And my cousin, who's around my age, we had a conversation about it, and she pointed out something that was kind of interesting that I thought I would share with you guys. So unfortunately, since that event happened, my family suffered some more loss. My mom's oldest sister, she passed away from breast cancer, and her daughter passed away in her sleep unexpectedly. So both of the people whose phones were involved were the next to die. And I know a lot of you guys are quick to jump on your family's cursed bandwagon. I get it. I understand why you think that, but hear me out. My family has really bad genetics, and I mean really bad. I mean, you're dead at 38 from cancer bad. I haven't been back to the cemetery in years, and really I don't have intentions of going back until I absolutely have to. But knowing what I know now, it really bothers me because I realized where we were standing in that circle and my aunt's phone was ringing is now the same place where both my aunt and my oldest cousin are buried. And if that's not life for you, I don't know what is.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so my ghost story is really creepy. Still gives me chills to think about and talk about. But so when I went to college, I went to this small little college in my hometown, and I was on the swim team, so my teammates all lived in this one little dorm. It happened to be the oldest dorm on campus, and I was a commuter, so I stayed over there a lot. I just bunked out on the floor most of the time. And you know, around spooky season, I was like, yeah, let's get a Ouija board. You know, I was really into like paranormal activity, and you think being into that you would be like, no, just don't mess with that shit. But anyway, I was like, let's get a Ouija board. So I went to Barnes & Noble, got a Ouija board, brought it back. And a little backstory about this dorm is that it burnt down quite a while ago, and it killed a few little girls. Then another time, a student there died in the dorm room. I don't know how long ago that was either. And they died for reasons I don't want to say because I don't want my video to be taken down. But anyway, moving on from that. So we get back to my friend's dorm room, and we set out the Ouija board, and we're like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And so we're all moving the little thing on the thing, and we're like, who the hell's moving this? Like, it kept moving. And then at one point I had this strange urge to just start bawling, unprovoked. Don't know what caused it. It was so long ago, I don't even remember what questions we were asking, like what answers we were getting, but I felt like I was like, I should be bawling right now. So I was like, I felt weird about not being in control of my own emotions. So I was like, guys, like this, I'm getting a really bad feeling, so let's just stop. So anyway, we go to bed, and I kid you not, at like 3 a.m. in the morning, the fire alarms start going off. And this building is so creepy when the fire alarms go off. Like, it's just red lights down the hallways, and it's so old. Ugh, gives me the chills thinking about it. But anyway, so the fire alarm going off, and you know, we did the Ouija board that night, so we were all a little bit scared. We were all sleeping in one dorm room at that point, like, because we were just scared girls. And so it starts blaring, and we're screaming because we're like, it's a demon, and like it was like crazy that was going through our head. But we're like, oh shit, it's the fire alarm. So we go outside, do all that, and then we go back inside once it's done. I kid you not, an hour later, the fire alarms start going off. Mind you, it's October. We've never had any issues with the fire alarm. They have not gone off one time. It went off 3 times that night, like hour on the hour. And the fire department would come, be like, there's no fire. We would go back in. And at that point, like, we had there was 10 of us sleeping in like this little dorm room, like sprawled out, because we were all just so freaked out by like this going on. So, you know, we went to breakfast the next morning, we talked about it, and we were like, we should get rid of the Ouija board. But that didn't happen until like a few weeks later. So we kind of dropped it, and then the next week we were, you know, the fire alarms hadn't gone off at that point, but we were talking about what happened. And then 10 minutes later, we noticed that there were students outside the dorm. We're like, what's going on? And they're like, the fire alarm went off. So like right when we started talking about it, the fire alarm went off. And this happened for months after that. We would talk about what happened, and the fire alarms would go off like that evening, and we would just know when they were going to go off. And so it was so creepy. We eventually did get rid of the Ouija board. My friend actually buried it and doused it with holy water. God bless her. But it was super creepy. And there's instances where like my friends were off in class, and I was sitting like in their dorm room, and I see this entity like jump off of the cabinet behind me, and I see it cross behind my head, and I hear a bang, and then I hear a bang from, so the rooms were like conjoined as a room, bathroom, and then room, and then that fit 4 people. So I hear bang over there. So I'm like, hey Chrissy, like, is that you? And no one was there. But so I like ran my ass out real quick, and because I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm not gonna like snoop and see like what's going on. But yeah, that was really creepy. And you know, me talking about this now, maybe the fire alarms are gonna go off in that dorm, so sorry about that. But yeah, don't get a Ouija board. That's scary shit right there.
So this person is asking people to tell their ghost stories that sound not true at all. Okay, so I just woke up. Excuse my hair. So the house that we lived in is definitely haunted, but it's one of those houses that was built in the 90s by one family who was the previous owners, the only other people to have lived here, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how it's haunted, but everybody in the house except my stepdad has witnessed things. My sister, me, my mom, we have all witnessed things and continue to. Now, I don't know how the house is haunted, but my mom thinks that it's because of some of the antiques and stuff we bring home. They may have something attached to them. So, like, a few examples would be, I was coming home from work one day, and I'm coming in through the back door, and from the living room, I heard, hey, and it sounded just like my stepdad. I said, hey, back. No response. Looked around. Nobody here. So I was like, okay, that's weird. I went outside, and they were outside, and I was talking to them. I was like, hey, was anybody in the house like 5 minutes ago? And they were like, no, we haven't been in the house in hours. When I tell you that is not the scariest thing that's happened here, I mean it. So in the main room that I'm in, there was a computer desk in here, and it was when we first moved up here. I will never forget this. This is my first experience in this house. I was sitting at the computer desk, and I looked down the hallway, and there was this like blue and white flash just go from my bedroom to the bathroom, and it looked like somebody running, and I was like, you know, wide-eyed, I got up and shot out the back door to my parents, and I was like, y'all, I just saw something run across the hallway, and they were like, oh, it didn't happen. You're trying to calm me down because I'm a kid, but my mom knows for sure. I'll get the occasional whistle. It's like very, very, very rare that it happens, like once every couple of years kind of thing. But the two scariest things that have happened to me in this house happened pretty close to each other. Also, I know I make fragrance videos, but I saw this and I had to share this. So it was like 4th of July, like 2022, I believe. So my parents had went out on a little vacation. They went to Tennessee, and I was here by myself. Now, at that time, I worked security. So I had to be up at like 5 in the morning, and I had to be there at 6. I fell asleep around 10 o'clock, and I heard knocking. It sounded like it was on the door, but I couldn't really tell, but it was. And I was like, there is no way that they came all the way back from Tennessee. But I also woke up to that sound, so I was like, there's no way that they just came back, you know. So I was kind of thinking, maybe I heard it in my dream or something like that. That was not the case. So I close my eyes and I try to go back to sleep, and then I hear it again, but it sounds like it's on the wall in the office next to my bedroom. I was like, whoa, okay, is somebody in my house, dude? And I kid you not, all the way from in there to all the way right here, I heard footsteps. And then right on my bedroom door, I heard it louder, bro. Like, I felt the door shake. It was 3 times again, but harder. And I was so scared. I didn't think to pick up my phone and record it at all. I literally grabbed a pistol and was aiming it at the door like, somebody's in this house checking doors. After about an hour, I gained the courage to get up and look around the house. There was nobody here. All the doors were still closed and locked. All the windows were closed. And I checked every closet, bathroom, you know, room in the house. And I could not go back to sleep that night. And I still had to be at work at 6 in the morning. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not going back to sleep. I literally stayed up and watched The Incredibles and Incredibles 2 to calm me down. That was probably the absolute scariest thing that has happened to me here. Now, I did see something one time that really made me question what it is that's here. So, again, I had to be at work early. So, I go to bed, wake up, get dressed and everything, and I'm stepping outside the back door. Well, my stepdad has a grill that is made from an old air compression tank. So, it sounds really silly. But it was up on stilts and everything, so it was, you know, it was about chest level, because he's a tall guy. And this thing was standing way taller than it. Like, no joke. It was standing probably about a foot taller or more. And it had no fucking face, dude. It was like skin color like this and just completely nothing there. You know, if you ever seen like Slender Man, kind of like that, but without the tentacles and all that. And I fucking saw this thing out of the corner of my eye while I'm walking to my car through the backyard. And I'm just like, kind of like keeping an eye on it while trying to get to my fucking car. And I'm like, I stop and I'm like, this fucking thing knows I see it out of the corner of my eye. I was like, if I fucking do something stupid, something bad might happen. So I just get in my car And I leave and I text my mom. I'm like, there is something standing outside. Do not go outside. I was horrified on my way to work. But I don't know why it didn't scare me as bad, because it's like it was standing still the whole time, but like it wasn't moving at all. So I really don't know why it didn't scare me as bad, but the knocking, that shit fucked me up. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen Ghost Adventures or not. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you probably have. Well, my mom has an SLS camera. And if you don't know what that is, basically it's like kind of like the cameras that are used on like Xbox Connects. It can map out bodies. So she used it in the living room one day, and she caught something on the couch. And if I can put that video here, I'll show you. But that video is so weird because it's like laying there just chilling, and then it starts crawling on the fucking floor. It's so scary. I'll try to put it in here. Hang on. So I couldn't find the option to put it up on green screen, so I'm probably going to have to make another video. But every time I explain this shit to somebody, it feels like they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I can't tell any of my friends, I can't tell any of my work buddies, because they're like, man, you're just bullshitting us, man. Blah, 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 blah. Like, no, dude, if you saw this shit too, you would believe. But, yeah, if this video gets a good amount of likes, I'll fucking throw the clip up on here, bro. I gotta find it first anyway. Yeah, so this also happened. This is my sister, commenting on my last video. I'm just replying to this little story real quick. Yeah, I did have the covers snatched off of me at one point. It was when I was in my old room. I was like maybe 13 or 14, and I had a full-size bed with a full-size comforter, and you know, it's very rare that I have it like just hanging off of the side of the bed, because I like to be covered completely when I sleep, because the feeling of like my foot sticking out, something could just fucking, you know, grab my ass, and I'm like, fuck that. So anyway, you know, I was sleeping and I felt the corner of the blanket like pull over itself, and I was like, what the fuck? And it woke me up because I was feeling it like drag off of me, and it went onto the floor. And it's kind of funny the way I said it, because I was like, I spoke out loud. I was like, damn, it's kind of cold in here, you know, like I just woke up or something like that. But I was like kind of staying a little bit still for a minute, because I didn't know what to do, really. It's kind of weird having your blankets pulled off of you in the middle of the night. So I reached down and pulled my blanket back over me, and I made sure all four corners of that bed were covered with that blanket. And then I felt it peel over itself again. And once it like got to my shoulder, like around my back or so, I grabbed it and I yanked it back, and I was like, nope. Didn't happen again, but I was like, what the fuck? Like, don't mess with me while I'm sleeping, dude. Okay, so here's the clip I was talking about. And as you can see, it's just sitting on the couch. A few things happen here. But yeah, it's just sitting on the couch right now. And then it starts going off and distorting itself and stretching out. Look in the background, the light actually flickers in the bedroom like that. But yeah, it's just stretching out, and then it's gone. I don't understand what just happened.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I did a lot of my growing up in Orange County, and up until I was about maybe 5 or 6 years old or so, I was living in an apartment complex in Santa Ana on Highland Street. And in that apartment, I lived with my cousin, who was around my age, my aunt, my parents, and my older sister. A lot of my time there was spent hanging out with my sister and my cousin, because a lot of the kids were older than me, and plus we didn't stay there for too long, so whatever. So yeah, anyway, years after we had moved on from that place, I was taking a trip down memory lane with my mom, and the topic of that apartment came up, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so yeah, the topic of that apartment came up, and I asked my mom, like, hey, whatever happened to that cousin that we used to live with? Because, you know, ever since we moved out of that apartment, never heard from him again. And, you know, my mom looks at me kind of perplexed, and she sits me down and she goes, okay, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anyone else in the family before, because I didn't want to scare them. And, I was kind of confused at what she was trying to get at. But basically, she goes on to say that that kid was in that apartment when we moved in. And that kid was a ghost. And what this kid would do is he would run up and down the hallways and look into everyone's rooms. And that's how my mom first noticed this kid. And he would never go into her room. And her guess is probably because she was an adult. But because I was around his age, he would always be in my room, playing with my toys, hanging out with me, talking to me, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. It's been years, and I still think about that kid all the time. But, the funny thing is, I couldn't tell you a single detail about what that kid looked like. Eye, hair, skin color, I don't know. Clothes that he wore, what his voice sounded like, couldn't tell you. And my mom can't tell you either. She doesn't remember. All she remembers is that there was a kid in that house that ran up and down the hallway. And all I knew is that there was a cousin around my age, and we hung out all the time. But yeah, I don't know. Funny story. I got more if you want them.
I bet I got another story for you, but I should probably preface this by saying that this is not my story, okay? This is my mom's story, and it's a story about some crazy shit that she saw when she first came here to the United States from Vietnam in the 80s, okay? So, believe it or not, it's up to you, but at the very least, it's entertaining. Alright, so my mom came to the US in 1984, and she had a total of 8 siblings, but she can only take 2 at the time, my uncle and my aunt, the aunt from the last story. Now, my whole family here are basically refugees because they came over here from Vietnam and there had just been a war that ended over there. So obviously, when you come over here, you don't really have much as far as belongings go. You don't have a lot of money. So my mom was getting welfare checks from the government every month to cover basic necessities. Try to find a place to live, try to find some food to eat, so on and so forth. Now, because they didn't have that much money to work with at the time, my mom would get into arguments with my uncle all the time about him being wasteful. And one of the things that he was wasteful with the most was with laundry. They didn't have money to be washing clothes on the daily, so my mom would tell him all the time, hey, put your pajamas up on the hook that's on the door, don't throw them in the hamper, I'll wash that on the weekly basis. Now, he would always push back and tell my mom, hey, I'm not putting my pajamas in the hamper. I'm putting it on the hook, like on the door, like you told me every single time. It's you that's putting the pajamas in the hamper, and that pissed her off. So they were arguing back and forth, and it went on for weeks. Eventually, they came to the agreement where every time he would leave the house, he would take my mom to his room and show her that the pajamas were hung up on the door. And she said, okay, that's fine, thinking that that would solve the problem. It didn't. Now, on one particular morning, my mom and my uncle got into a really bad argument, and my uncle left pissed off. Didn't say bye to her, didn't show her his pajamas, whatever. So after she cooled off, she decided to tidy up the house, get some things in order. And one of the things that she did was she went into my uncle's room to check that the pajamas were hung up on the door, and they were. So after she was done with all her chores, she sat down in the living room to watch some TV. Now, when you walk into this apartment, right next to the door is the couch that she was sitting on, and right in front of her was the TV. And on the sides of the TV were 2 hallways, one that led to the kitchen and one that led to the bedrooms. So after sitting there and watching TV for a little while, she noticed in the peripheral that somebody was walking back and forth between bedrooms in the hallway, and she thought it was my uncle because he was wearing his pajamas. Now, she saw him leave the apartment earlier because of the argument, but she didn't see him come back. So she was kind of assuming that he either left school early because he wasn't feeling well, or maybe he had a minimum day or something like that. I don't know what y'all call it in other areas, but in Southern California, back in the day, if you had a half day at school, it was called a minimum day. Anyway, so she calls out to him and she gets no response. And she kind of figured that he was still pretty heated at her and didn't want to talk. So she was going to leave him alone for a little while to cool off before talking to him again. A few minutes later, she sees him cross the hallway again. And when she goes up to his room to check on him, he's not there. But his clothes, his pajamas, were in the hamper. So at this point, she's freaking the fuck out because she was 100% sure that his pajamas were hanging up on that door when she checked on it last. And he's not home, so what the fuck was wearing his clothes around the house? A couple hours go by and my uncle gets home from school. And as soon as he walks through the door, my mom goes through all of the bedrooms and grabs all of the clothes that she got from that church, and she drove it right back to the donation center and dropped it off there. Her working theory is that the clothes she picked up from that church belonged to someone who had passed away and were donated. And so to this day, She will never thrift. She will never buy anything secondhand. She only buys new clothes. If we gift her, we have to make sure that it's always new, nothing antique, nothing pre-owned, nothing, because of this. So yeah, I got a bunch of other stories, but they're pretty small and insignificant, and not really enough to make a full post out of it. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting one. Oh, and by the way, that church that she got all the clothes from was La Purísima Church in Orange. So maybe consider this story the next time you go there trying to look for clothes.
Sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely.
So this story happened to my husband and my husband is not a vivid dreamer. He barely ever remembers his dreams. But one night, I guess it was like really early in the morning, between like 3 or 4 in the morning, I wake up to my husband like pushing my face, and it scared the shit out of me because like I was dead asleep and he literally starts pushing my face and he's freaking out and it worries me, and I wake him up and I shake him. I'm like, babe, what's wrong? So he has this really creepy dream. I'll shorten it, but his dream, he essentially saw this woman, this witch, floating up to the second story of his childhood home, trying to get into the house, and he was like literally pushing her out. And so he woke up to actually pushing me. So then we wake up for like a little bit, and then we go back to sleep, and then I fall into this weird ass dream where I am in this house and I'm like walking around the rooms and they're all empty and everything, and it looks like I just moved in, and I start getting very, very disoriented and like I can't find my way around. I can't get out of the house, and it's not a big house, and it felt like something was keeping me there. And eventually I did come to something face to face that was not letting me leave the house, and it even told me that like it wants me to be afraid because it doesn't want me to know dream from reality. And I remember during this dream I kept trying so hard to wake up, and to the point where I thought I was actually waking up and I was awake, but I was still in the dream. And this happened like 3 times where I thought that I was waking up and I was actually still in the dream. So at the same time I'm having this dream, my husband is having another dream where he's walking down this hallway and he's trying to find me, and he runs into me, but like something is off about me. He's like, you're not Paige. And the thing looks at him and gets this really creepy smile and is like, you're not the one I want. And it was trying to fucking find me. And so at the same time, this entity is like going after me. I'm having this freaky dream where an entity is like trapping me because it doesn't want me to know if I'm awake or not. And my husband is having another dream at the same time where this thing is looking for me and trying to impersonate me. And also he had that dream right before where this ugly, nasty witch woman was like trying to break into the house. So we had 3 dreams in a row within a matter of a few hours where something was like trying to break in and find us and like get to me. And I woke up with the worst feeling in my gut. I immediately did a home cleansing. I was like, there's something different about that dream. Like, all of those dreams were just way too real. I did such a serious cleansing on the home and blessed us, and that was honestly one of the weirdest things because it felt like this thing was trying to cross in between our dreams to get to me, and it was so weird. I could honestly do a whole playlist of all the weird things that I've encountered with like ghosts and spirits, especially dreams, because I have some weird ass dreams. So if you want any more, just let me know. This app is truly so elitist, so apparently I cannot make a playlist unless I have 10,000 followers, but I'm gonna share some more ghost stories because I really like to share my ghost stories. Alright, so this happened a long time ago, like over 10 years ago. I was still living at my dad's house, and I remember I was texting this boy that I liked, and I guess we had both fallen asleep, and I remember I fell asleep with my light off and my TV on, and in my dream when I fell asleep, my bedroom light was on. And I remember I was up in the corner of my room floating like on the ceiling, and I was looking down at my body, and I was laying down on my stomach. And then the next thing I see is this horrible hag looking witch, and I'm laying on my stomach, and I had like a recliner next to my bed. She's on the armchair of the recliner, hunched up with like her legs like that, and she's like crawling into me. She's trying to crawl into my body, and she's like digging into my back. And I remember the pain felt so real, like I just had horrible searing pain in my back. And she notices that I'm up in the corner of my room watching this, and I could feel right before she saw where I was, I could feel that she was about to see me. And I remember so distinctly, she was like digging into me, and she whips her head up and she looks at me, and she has this horrible face, this horrible face. And we lock eyes, and then thankfully, like just a second after, I got a text that woke me up from the boy that I was texting, and he snapped me out of my dream, and he freaking saved my life. The face I can describe is very similar to this, only she had like really long raggedy hair and raggedy nails, and like her face was really pale, and she had like just a snarl on her face. She was so horrible to look at.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
The way that I ran to record this video was so fast. Now, I normally don't make videos. I don't post on TikTok. But this was the one. I was like, girl, this is your time. If there's ever a time, this is the time you have to tell your story. I have had paranormal stuff happen to me my whole life. Definitely more so as I've gotten older. I've had astral projection, what I would consider astral projection, horrible sleep paralysis, crazy dreams, physical encounters with things for as long as I can remember, up till, currently. The one story that I want to talk about is when I was 18, I was a park aide at Donner Memorial State Park. Now, most of you know the Donner Party, or if you don't, they're pretty researchable. And I worked there as a park aide when I turned 18 during the winter time. Now, my dad was also a ranger there at one point prior to me working there. And it's been kind of in my life, and I grew up there, and it's what the town is known for. So one day when I was working in this museum, I was by myself. I worked by myself a lot, especially during in the winter time. It was very slow. It was snowing outside. I was getting ready to close up, and from the back museum portion, I heard what I can only describe as children giggling. Now, I thought it was weird, but I had been going to the back and then kind of coming back up to the front throughout the day, and I was like, well, maybe somebody came in that I didn't see. It was time for me to close up anyway, so I made my way into the museum to go lock the exit doors in the back and just check and make sure that nobody was in there. As soon as I walked in, the giggling stopped. And in my head, I'm kind of like, well, maybe I'm just freaking myself out. Maybe there wasn't anything, like, it's fine. So I'm making my way through the displays. It's kind of like shaped, it's a big concrete box, no windows. Already creepy in itself. It was built in like the 60s. This thing is old. And it's kind of the displays are set up in like a horseshoe shape. So you walk in and then it rounds and then you kind of make your way back out. I'm heading down to lock up the back exit towards the back wall. And as I'm walking, from over my shoulder, one of the displays goes off. Now they're the big you push the button on the wall and it makes the guy talk. And now in my brain, I'm like, that's weird. It's weird. But like, it's old, the button's broke, like, it's fine. I'm like talking myself out of it. I'm like, it's okay, it's fine, everything's fine. Like, don't worry about it, just like lock the door and get the hell out of there. So I kind of write it off. I mean, clue number 2 that I probably shouldn't have been in there, right? But I just keep going. So I go to the exit door, lock the exit door, I'm making my way around the U, and on the back wall, there is this massive, like, life-size display of a covered wagon. And then there's a mother and child, like, up at the top. And then there's, like, 2 men down below. Life-size wax mannequins. Creepy. Anyway, I'm walking around this corner, and I'm going around the U. And what I can only describe as, like a full body, like chill. Like, kind of crawls up my spine. I don't know what possesses me, but I decide to turn around and check it out. So I look over my shoulder,
the mannequins that have always been facing left for years, since they put them in, they've always faced left, are now facing right. They are facing the opposite direction, and they are staring at me in my eyeballs. They are from this to this, and now looking directly at me. The way that I panicked, like my heart, like I am like feeling like I'm reliving the whole thing again. Like the panic, I sprinted out of there so fast. She is not a runner. She is not a track star, but I booked it. I booked it so fast, and I ran and I hid behind a table in the back. Like there's a back office. I hid under the desk. I called the ranger. I had a ranger come and escort me out of the building because I was so terrified. I was so terrified. I cannot convey through the screen how afraid I was. And he comes over. He has to talk me off the ledge. He's like trying to calm me down. And he's telling me, don't worry. Like it does happen to some of us. They like to mess with us sometimes. It's okay. Excuse me, sir? They like to mess with us? Like shouldn't have somebody told me prior to being hired? Shouldn't have been written in my contract? Like, the spirits, the lingering spirits of the Donner Party, like, to mess with the staff. No biggie, it's fine. Anyway, I decided to go home, and I decided to talk to my dad about it, because my dad, of all people, who has worked there for years, you'd think he would tell his daughter that there were ghosts and spirits or whatever, a presence where she was working, because he hadn't told me before. But anyway, I decided to go tell him. I think he's gonna laugh at me, because I'm a dramatic person, but I think he's gonna laugh at me and brush it off or whatever. He's very straight-laced. He's not normally a spiritual or paranormal person. Oh no, he says, oh yeah, that's happened a couple times. It's kind of creepy. We just don't like to talk about it. I would have liked to talk about sir, would have liked to talk about it before I got hired, before I was put in that situation. Anyway, I digress. So, I do want to preface in saying, like, I have the utmost empathy for the Donner Party, that situation, like the whole thing. And I'm not trying to make light of that situation whatsoever, but I will say that it was traumatizing, and it has stuck with me. It stuck with me forever. I still think about it to this day. I still continue to have stuff happen. We had stuff happen there because I also worked there for 3 years, so I just continue to work there. So honestly, that's on me. But like, we had stuff like there was a false door that housed a projector screen for a video that we shot that would just pop open, just squeak, like it would just pop open. The projector would just start playing. The giggles came back, you know. So anyway, it was pretty crazy. And yeah. Anyway, I just felt like, you know, people should know about that. And if you've watched this 7-minute long video, this is why I don't make videos. I can't stop talking, the ADHD. Anyway. But yeah, that's my story. Okay. Bye. Hi friends. So I figured I would jump back on here at the behest of many of my friends and family to make some more videos and kind of maybe clear up some stuff and answer a few questions about my last video, which a lot of you have seen. Was not expecting that. Let's clear up one thing first. Your girl got her nails done. I'm not nasty. I am a hairdresser. They were stained from color, okay? Please stop coming for me. I swear I'm not gross. I literally had just done hair the day before, and I had done a level 2 black color, and they were scrubbed. It's just the underneath gets stained from hair color, okay? I've got a top coat that doesn't stain. The underneath, she gets stained. Okay. Anyway, that's why I can't make videos, because my poor little cancer rising soul can't take the heat. Anyway, so let's clear some things up. So first, nails. Second, yeah, a lot of people were asking about security footage. It was old. It was an old museum. There was no security footage. There is now, however, in the new museum, but the old museum did not have any cameras of any kind. However, we had so many employees that had this similar experience. So it's widely known throughout the staff that, yeah, it happens. I also talked about it with my brother after I posted that video, and he was mentioning some stuff that happened to him as a little kid at a Christmas party, because we used to have Christmas parties in the museum there too, and he had a similar thing happen to him. So super scary. What were we on? 3? I can't hold up. I broke my finger at one point. 3? That's okay. So the third thing, what were people asking? Oh, they were talking about, yeah, I said that I had empathy for the Donner Party. I guess I should have worded it better. I fully understand that they did this of their own accord, right? They left late in the season. They did not get along. They did not work together. They did not accept the help that was given to them, and they got stuck. Their own fault. I just meant that I have a lot of spiritual stuff happen to me, and I try really hard not to put out negative energy, and I just don't like to talk ill of the deceased, just because I do have a lot of stuff that attracts to me. And so I was just meant I had empathy in a sense of I was just not trying to like slam on the dead. That sounds weird. You know what I mean. I just felt weird about it. So I was just trying to put out some positive energy, but I completely understand. I understand that they did this to their own accord. Also, I want to make more videos. I think maybe I'm trying to be a little comfortable in my own skin. I don't really know. I have a lot of ghost stories. I don't mind telling more. But I have a lot of other interests too. I like books. So if any of the book girlies, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll talk more about books. I like Taylor Swift. Me just trying to find topics to talk about. I like to talk, obviously. All my coworkers that do hair said I should make some hair videos. I don't know. Do you guys want to watch me work? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's even gonna follow. I mean, I got some followers, but like, I don't know if anybody even wants to watch me just ramble on in my ADHD addled brain talk about stuff. So I don't know. I think I want to tell some more ghost stories. So maybe I'll make some new videos. Also, I just got a facial, so she's a little bit of a greased chicken right now. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of what everybody's gonna come for me for in this next video. But the nails are clean. Man, Dagger, you guys are brutal. This is why I don't make videos. I get so nervous. I don't know. So anyway, I love you guys. I think I cleared up everything. We talked about the nails. We talked about video footage. We talked about the fact that I said I have empathy, and I just meant like, I just don't want any negative attraction towards me. So that's what I meant. They did it to themselves. I'm fully aware. And yeah. Oh, also, just, I guess I never really explained what the Donner Party was. I told everybody to research it themselves. Sorry about that. I was trying not to ramble. Here we are again at 5 minutes and I'm still rambling. But basically the Donner Party was a group of pioneer settlers that traveled from one side of America to the other, to California, in a giant covered wagon with oxen and multiple families and stuff. And they left late, and they landed in Tahoe, or in Donner Lake, and unfortunately hit a early blizzard, and yeah, did not fully make it over the summit into what we now know as Sacramento, and had to resort to cannibalism. Can we say that here on the talk of Tig? Anyway, it wasn't great. So that's what the Donner Party is. Yeah. So anyway, there's my update. I still have not figured out how to put the little comment up there. I'll figure it out. You're probably not going to get like transitions from me and like editing, and this is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a FaceTime. So if you want to stick around and hang out with me, I like new friends. So okay, but I don't know what am I, Miley? Okay, I'm done. I'm leaving. How do I turn this off? Okay, bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely.
So when I was 10 years old, my dad committed on the front porch. And an important note is that the entire time I lived at that house, my whole life, the doorbell did not work. But fast forward to the middle of the night, a couple months after my dad's died, the doorbell is going off. And it's not your normal ding dong kind of doorbell. It's Beethoven's Fifth. So it's going dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. And it doesn't just do it once. It does it over and over and over again. What I remember most about it was so overwhelmingly loud. Since it wouldn't stop, my mom just had to rip the little speaker out of the wall. Now we had two front doors. We had the door in the carport where the doorbell actually was, and the porch door where my dad actually died. And I will never forget watching a shadow walk by that window after she tore the speaker out. Always wondered if my dad was trying to come back inside.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
When I was 8 or 9, I had such a weird experience. And it didn't happen just once, it happened twice. I remembered it was the afternoon around 6 or 7 p.m. and I had grabbed my brother's tablet and ran into my parents' room. I was just sitting on top of their bed, and their room is my room now. And my parents, my dad was outside gardening while my mom was at work. At the time, I don't remember if I had glasses or not, but I was looking up at the tablet like this because I'm so blind. But my dad had walked in and into the bathroom, and I noticed from the corner of my eye. And about 40 to 50 minutes passed, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to use the bathroom. I have to pee. But he's still in there. So I had like gone off the bed and went and knocked on the door, and I heard him turn the water off. I heard the curtains move. I heard his wet feet touch the ground. I was standing there for probably a minute or so when I noticed he wasn't moving, he wasn't talking or any of that, but I really had to pee. So I had ran over to the other bathroom, which is like past the living room. All of my brothers were in the living room that day except for one, and I just remembered feeling so off. Like, I left the bathroom and I was like, Dad has been in the shower for so long. And mind you, my dad takes 20-minute showers. He's always in and then he's out. So for him to be in there for 50 minutes, it was really weird. And then to get out and not say anything was even weirder. And when I had said that, and I said that he was in there for so long, my brother told me, what do you mean? Dad had went to go pick up Mom like 30 minutes ago. Now, as a kid, of course, I'm going to start panicking and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, there is someone in the bathroom, And my brother had went and grabbed a metal bat, went over to the bathroom, and opened the door, and there was nobody in there. But the light was on. You could tell that someone was taking a shower because the shower's still wet. But he told me, don't worry about it, there's nobody in there. And I was imagining things. And I was like, okay, let me just not think about that again, and just like went out there to be with them. Fast forward to the time where I was 17 last year in January. I had been in my bed for so long. I had been up for about 20 hours. I was supposed to say minutes. And I had just been texting my friends. I was like, I gotta go to bed soon, so let me finish my conversation with them and then I'm gonna use the bathroom. I remember that my door was open and my brother had peeked into my room. It's not uncommon for him to just peek in and look at me for like a few seconds and then leave, so I didn't think anything of it. During that time, my dad had just came home and he had been talking to my mom in the dining room, and just keep that in mind, okay? So then about 2-3 minutes passed by and my brother walks into my room. You know, I'm still blind, I don't have my glasses on, and I'm looking close to my phone, right? But I see him come into my room and into the bathroom. And he had been in there for about 5 minutes maybe. I literally looked over and the bathroom door is cracked open. You can see his shadow and everything. Okay, the light isn't on, but you can see that he's moving around. I'm like, okay, maybe he's looking for something. But I have to pee. So I walk up to the bathroom and I was about to say that, hey, are you done? I have to use the bathroom. But I didn't. I just backed away from it, went out into the kitchen, and guess who's there? It's my brother. And I was like, okay, that's so weird. But I was like, you know what? I'm really sleepy and I really have to pee. So I went to use the bathroom. Now I walk out of the bathroom and I look over to my right and the front door is wide open. And I'm like, okay, why is it open? You know, the only person who would go outside right now is my dad. Because now I'm thinking it was just my dad who went into the bathroom looking for something, not my brother. So I went up to my brother, was like, hey, who's outside? Why is the front door open? And he says, Dad has been out there for probably 8 minutes and he's taking Yuki out. And Yuki is my dog. So I'm like, he's been out there? Okay. So I walk into my room and I stop in front of the door that is still cracked open. And I don't see a shadow anymore. I don't see anybody moving. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go in there. I open it, swing it open. I walk in there. There's nobody there. Nobody. So I just climb back into bed. And during that time, I remember just being not really phased because, you know, I'm really sleepy. And I was like, let me just go to bed. So I go to bed. I wake up and I start thinking about it. I'm like, wait a second. This has happened to me before, where I thought that somebody had walked through those doors all the way to that bathroom, been in there for minutes, and not come out. And the signs were literally there that people or somebody was in there. But I remembered about a few weeks later, I'm sitting at the dining table and I'm telling my brother about it. And I asked him, have you seen anybody go into my room that day since you were in the kitchen? And he told me no, nobody did. So I genuinely don't even know what that is, like what happened or whatever. I know it's not like doppelgangers or anything, but I don't know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So this is not my story. This is my mom's story, but I know it pretty well because she told me it 1,000 times when I was growing up because I always wanted her to tell me about it because it just fascinated me. So when she was in about middle school, her and her family, it was my uncle, her, and my grandparents. They moved into like a new housing development. So they were the first people to live in this house. Nobody had ever lived in this house before. She said that one night they were sitting in the living room, the whole family in the living room, and she got up to go take a shower. She went down the hall, and her room was at the end of the hall, and then if you were like standing in her room facing out into the hall, her brother's room was on the right, bathroom on the left, and then a little further down from the bathroom was her parents' room. So she said she went in her room, she got her clothes, she got everything ready for her shower, she turned, she flipped off the light, and right in front of her, a man walked from her brother's room into her parents' room. And she said he wasn't really walking, he was about like 4 or 5 inches off the ground, wearing one of her shirts. So she flipped the light back on, she looked in her brother's room, nobody there, looked in her parents' room, nobody there, ran out to the living room, everybody's still in the living room, and she told them what she saw, and they were all like, whatever, like, that's crazy. No, you didn't see that. So she also said that that shirt was never missing, it was still in her drawer. She took a shower, whatever. So later on, I don't know how much later, but the next experience, she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth in the morning, and in the mirror she could see her room and her brother's room. And she said that she saw the man again walk out of her brother's room but into her room wearing the same shirt, her shirt. So she went and looked, and there's nobody there, nobody in her room, nobody in her brother's room, shirt's not missing. She just saw this man again, and again he was floating about 4 or 5 inches off the floor, not walking, but went from his room to her room, and she saw it out of the mirror. And then, so another time, she said she came home from school and her brother was home. He was sitting at the kitchen table doing his homework with a gigantic butcher's knife next to him on the table. She's like, what the hell? What are you doing? Like, what is going on? He said that he heard somebody in the house, and he was home alone because it was after school, everybody's at work, whatever. They had an old rocking chair in the living room that the springs popped when you sat down and got out of, so like you could hear if somebody was in there, like sitting in the chair for sure. He said he heard somebody in the living room sit down in the chair and get back up, but nobody else was there at home with him. So another time, so the only person that did not experience anything in that house with that man was my grandpa. So I asked my grandma about it too, because, you know, love the story, want to get her take on it because I've always heard it from my mom. She said that she came home one day from getting groceries, and she was bringing groceries in, and she walked in the front door and looked in the kitchen, and she said she saw this man propped up against the counter, like on his elbows, you know, propped up against the counter with his back to her. And she said she went around the corner to look in the kitchen, and there was nobody there. She was home alone. So the final time that he was seen in the house, my mom had some friends over, and she was going to her room to get her Ouija board to see if they could contact this man or whatever. And she said she was walking down the hall, she walked past her parents' room, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw him sitting on the end of their bed. And they had a water bed, so it was moving, you know, like somebody had just sat down on it. And she stopped, and she backed up again to take another look. Bed was still, nobody was there. And they moved shortly after that, so she said that was the last time she saw him, but she will never forget that, and I will never forget that, because it just fascinates me.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So when I was like 4 or 5, I was up in my bedroom. It was late. There was a computer room right below my bedroom where my mom used to play her computer games at night. And one night she heard me talking, so she started making her way to my bedroom. She went through the living room and saw that my dad was sleeping on the couch. She proceeded to go up the stairs, and the first door off of our stairs was my brother's room. She peeked in there. He's passed out. So she continues to make her way to my room, and she finds me sitting straight up in bed, and she said, "Who were you talking to?" And I said, "I wasn't talking to anyone." She said, "I heard a man's voice, and I heard you talking. Who were you talking to?" So I said, "It was no one, Mom. It was just a guy with no head." So she said, "Okay, your brother's probably been showing you the headless horseman, like, go to bed." So the next morning, my dad's on his way to work, and he calls my mom and says, "You need to go check under her bed, in her closet, check her windows, check that whole house." My mom said, "Why?" And he said, "They just announced that they found a guy in the river with no head." Turns out he was a lawyer, and by the end, when they found him, it ended up being just a torso, but I don't know who I was talking to that night. I don't remember it. And to this day, anytime I try to tell this story, I usually just make my mom tell it because nobody believes me.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, so this is like my third time trying to film this, so if this don't work out, I'm gonna take it as a sign, I'm gonna leave it alone. But your girl used to live in a haunted house. This was back when I was like 19, 20. I was stationed in Germany. Yes, a lot happened while I was in Germany. But my boyfriend and I at the time had got the okay to move off the dorms and find a place. I looked for a while, and I finally found one that was like really, really nice that I really wanted so bad. And it was in our price range. It was like $1,200. It was 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. And it was, when I tell y'all, I wish I had pictures, but it was so nice. And that was honestly the first red flag. Like the amount that the rent cost for like the size of the place and how nice it was. Like I should have known. But the red flags just kept coming after that. Okay. We went to go see the place, and the landlord took us, but the tenants that were in there, they were there too. And they were really trying to sell this house to us because we were going to be taking over their lease. Now they were military too. So I was just being nosy. They were trying to sell us the house. So I had questions. I was asking them, are you guys PCSing? Did y'all get orders somewhere? And they were like, no. I was like, okay, are you guys having a kid or something y'all expecting? Because it was a husband and wife. And I mean, the house was, like I said, it was pretty big. It was really nice, but maybe they needed more space. So I was asking if they were like, are y'all having a kid or something? And they were like, No. These answers was definitely red flag after red flag after red flag, okay? But my dumb ass ignored them. We ignored all the flags, ignored them. So it took us like 30 days to actually, go through the contract with housing and stuff in Germany. It was really weird. But when it was time for us to like get the keys and move in, the landlord was out of town. And he was like, oh, you could just go to the old tenant's new place and get the keys from them. They have keys. So we put in their new address and it's like 5 minutes away. We're like, what? So we pull up. It's a block behind the house. So I'm thinking, oh, they done came up. Okay, they didn't move too far. We ring the doorbell. They invite us in. It's the same house. It's the same layout. The view is different. And the view at the house that we're about to move into is better. But it's the same layout. 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It looked the same. That day, they really weren't trying to talk too much neither. They were just really like, hurry up, here's the key, and go on about your business. That was another red flag. We should have known. I should have known. But anyways, we end up moving into this house, right? And first couple months is chill. Until one day I'm in the shower and I'm pretty sure I'm home alone and the door starts to creak open. Like it just starts to creak open. I'm like, what the fuck? So where the door is and where I'm at in the shower, I can see the mirror. Like I should be able to see somebody in the door. So I'm looking in the mirror to try to see if it's like my boyfriend and I don't see anything. Mind you, I can't see in the first place. Like I don't have my glasses on. I can't see in the first place. And the mirror's kind of foggy. So I'm like, maybe I just can't see him. So I call out his name and then the door just slams shut. So at this point, I'm like the perfect mixture of scared as fuck and mad as hell. Cause I know it has to be my boy. I know he has to be playing a fucking joke. Like I know he playing. So I get out the shower, I grab my phone. It's in the bathroom still. And I call him and I'm going off because I was yelling his name as I was getting out the shower. And as soon as he answers the phone, I'm telling you, I'm going off. And then I finally just shut up and I can hear that he's not at home. He is at work. Like I can hear work noises in the background. And he's confused. He's like, why the fuck are you going off on me? And I'm like, I thought you were in the house. Like I thought you opened the bathroom door and wasn't saying anything and slammed it shut. He was like, I'm not even there. So now I'm not angry. I'm just scared. But my boyfriend was like, well, maybe it's, so-and-so. I think like 3 other people had keys to our house at the time. So I called all 3 of them. I'm still in the bathroom in a towel. And they're all somewhere else. They're at work or at the gym, at the store or something. They are not here. I am here alone. I called my boyfriend back and I'm like, you need to get home. Like, you need to get home now. So I finally get the courage up to like run across the hall to our bedroom and like hide and at least put on some clothes. I want to, be able to defend myself. He gets home and nobody's in the house. House is locked up. And he thinks I'm crazy. But guess what started to happen after that day? All of the fucking doors if you left the door open, that bitch would slam shut. And my boyfriend at the time, he would try to like write it off like, oh, maybe it's just the wind. Maybe the house is just settling. The doors are slamming shut. So whenever I had people over, I would just tell them, when you come into a room, close the door behind you or it's going to get slammed shut. At some point, we're going to be sitting here chilling and the door just going to slam shut. And I know what y'all probably thinking, bitch, why you didn't just move? I had like 9 months left on my orders and no money to break this lease. So me and the ghost, we were just finna hang out. But anyways, a bunch of other shit would happen. Like I remember one day specifically, I would tell my friends that I think this house is fucking haunted. Like I think something is in here. My homeboy, he didn't believe me. He would always come over and antagonize the ghost. But there ain't no ghost in here. And he would get fucked up. But that is a different story time. But I remember one day, me, my guy best friend, and my girl best friend, we were sitting downstairs. We were watching a movie or something. And we knew that we were the only ones in the house. We could hear someone upstairs walking around and opening and shutting doors. The 3 of us are all people of color, okay? My homegirl looked at us and she was like, y'all hungry? Anybody want to go to KFC? Anybody? We just got up and left, y'all. We got up and left. None of us was finna go investigate. If somebody was up there, they could have that fucking house. I didn't give a shit. We would just get up and leave. And yes, my friends kept coming to my fucking house, even though it was haunted, because everybody was living on the dorms and we were the only ones with the place. So, but I think the craziest thing started happening like 2 months before I actually PCS and like got up out of there. I would be like laying on the couch, like taking a nap, and my boyfriend at the time would be playing video games in the living room. And I would have the craziest sleep paralysis. Like it would be like I heard our front door open and I could hear two people like walking in the house and they're arguing. I can't make out what they're saying and I can't move and I can't see. I could just hear them arguing. I'm like whimpering. Like I remember like trying to like scream. I feel like I'm screaming, but like nothing's coming out. And I would be like whimpering or whatever. And eventually my boyfriend would be like, would shake my leg and like I would wake up and I'm like, did you hear that? Did you see that? I literally would get so scared, like falling asleep in the living room because it would always be like two people arguing, but I would be in this like sleep paralysis and I could hear them like their tone was like they were arguing, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. But yeah, my husband, he didn't want to believe me for a while. Like I would tell him when we first met, like, yeah, I used to live in a haunted house. And he didn't believe me until my homegirl, the one that was like, y'all want to go get some food? Y'all want to leave? Until she came to town and she told him like all of the stories because it was a wild time. Okay, so here's a story time about how my homeboy would antagonize the fucking ghost. And it kind of fucked him up a little bit. So a little backstory first. When I lived in this house, it was from 2014 to 2015. And that was like a year or two after the movie A Haunted House had came out. And y'all know how I was saying I would tell my friends to make sure that they closed the door so that the ghost wouldn't like slam the door shut. So whenever I would tell my homeboy, he would always, reference that movie. He would always be like, that part where she's like, stop, you don't want to make it mad. And he was like, I don't give a fuck, Keisha. I'm going to insert a clip.
Right, cut it out. You're going to make it mad. I don't give a fuck, Keisha.
So he would always act like, I don't give a fuck, I don't give a fuck. Or I ain't scared of no ghosts, To the point where like we started calling the ghost Keisha. So like if anything weird would happen, we would either not acknowledge it or we were like, oh, Keisha mad, she's slamming doors. So one day my friends that came over, they had been drinking and they lived on a dorm. So they weren't going to go back on base because, they were drinking and they didn't want to drink and drive. So they were like, okay, we'll just spend the night here. I think it was like 3 friends that were spending the night. So my homeboy that would always antagonize the ghost, he ended up having to sleep on a couch. So my living room was weird. It had a door separating the hallway from the living room. So before I went upstairs, like I had gave him a blanket and a pillow and I had made sure that door was closed. So I go upstairs and I go to sleep. But I'm usually like the first person to get up anyways. And when I got up in the morning, my friend was not there, which was weird because we were drinking. Like I know he didn't drive back to base, like because we was drunk. But I had texted him and I didn't hear anything from him. But he and I worked together and it was Sunday. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just see him tomorrow and we'll just talk about it tomorrow. So Monday morning, like first thing when I see him, he's like, bro, I ain't coming to your house no more. And so I was like, what happened? He said he was in my living room. He was sleeping for like maybe an hour or two. And then he heard a door slam, but he didn't know which door it was. And so he just made a little comment like, all right, chill out, Keisha. And he just tried to go back to sleep. And the next thing you know, he hears like the microwave open. Like it just like it was one of those push microwaves and like the door like comes open. He said it like flew open and he got up and looked because he could see my kitchen from where he was sitting on the couch. And the light of the microwave, like the inside of the microwave is like shining, but nobody's in the kitchen. He said that shit sobered him up so fucking fast. He got up and left. And he was not fucking around. He did not come back to my house for like a while after that. And when he did come, he wouldn't stay too long. And then he came for like Christmas because we had cooked. And I had put up all these decorations and stuff. And I didn't have a fireplace. I had like this like beam on the ceiling or whatever that I hung the stockings on. And like they were on actual hooks. And I guess my friend forgot that like all that talking shit is what got your ass scared as fuck the last time. So he still came in there and he was talking shit. I don't give a fuck, Keisha. I don't give a fuck, Keisha. And he was just talking about, how you ain't scared of Keisha, da-da-da-da-da. So we just sitting there talking or whatever. Again, it's like Christmas time or whatever. And he's sitting on the couch, which is not directly below the beams, but it's like near it kind of. And out of nowhere, he wasn't even talking shit about the ghost at this point. So literally out of nowhere, his stocking comes flying down and like hits him in the head. I think that pretty much scared all of us. And we were all just trying to be like, well, maybe it just fell. We were trying to justify that shit because it was scary as fuck. Like, it was really scary. So that was like the only 2 incidences where it like kind of came from my friend as he was antagonizing it. But I did want to clear up a couple of other things that people were asking from the previous video. A lot of people have been asking, like, why didn't you go and talk to the old renters? Or, like, why didn't you knew where they live? Why didn't you go and talk to them? Y'all, I was fighting for my life, okay? My dude was cheating on me real bad. Real bad. My job fucking sucked. And I was poor, okay? I was poor. Keisha was honestly the least of my motherfucking worries at that time. She just was. No, I didn't do no research on the house. I didn't do no research on the land. Y'all, I wouldn't even go upstairs when she was up there slamming doors and I could hear her stomping around. I wouldn't even go up there. So hell no, I wasn't investigating shit. Oh, also people were asking like, your friends really just hung out and they knew the house was haunted? Okay, so at the time, the base dorms were dry, which means that there was no alcohol. And again, I wasn't the only one with problems. We all had problems, okay? And we were trying to drink them away. So ghost or no ghost, depression was hitting us hard, all right? We was getting fucked up. But yeah, y'all, that's it. That's the story time. Okay, my bad. I meant to mention this in the last video because everyone keeps asking if they were the arguing when I was in the sleep paralysis, if they were talking in English or in German. So the sleep paralysis thing maybe happened to me like 3 or 4 times, always in the living room. But that first time really fucked me up. Like I was saying, I was asleep on the couch and, well, I didn't think I was asleep, but I could hear my front door open and like people walking towards where we were in the living room, and I could hear them arguing. But at this point in time, I'm like fighting for my life to try to get up or get my boyfriend's attention because he was on his game. So I could tell that they're arguing. I cannot make out any words at all. It's just like the tone of like somebody arguing, but also it felt like maybe like, you know, having your hands covering your ears or something. It sounded so muffled, but I really honestly wasn't even focused on what they were saying because they were like standing behind me and I'm asleep on the couch. And I was just terrified, just trying to like internally I'm screaming, but I guess coming out as whimpering. And then like my boyfriend eventually heard it and like shook my leg. But while this was happening, like I could hear them muffled, but I could also hear him muffled too. And he's talking shit because he's on the game. I think he was playing like, he would either be on Madden or Call of Duty and he would be playing online. And like I could hear him too, but he was also muffled. And I'm like, help, like I need help. And after that first time, I really, really tried to make it a point not to fall asleep in the living room, but I would still have the paralysis. Like I said, maybe 2-3 times after that, but I guess you don't know that you fell asleep, but I would feel like I'm awake, like I'm just watching him play the game. And then I would be in it. I would be in the sleep paralysis, and it would be not them walking in. They would just be behind me. I would be on the couch and they would be behind arguing, like muffled, and I would be fighting for my life to try to get his attention, so that he could shake me and get me out of it. So I would say, you know, with all the doors slamming and stuff and the hearing somebody walking around upstairs, like the sleep paralysis was absolutely the worst part to it. But like I said, that only happens like I have maybe 2 months left, if that. And it happened, you know, a couple of times. And yeah, I was just, mental note, don't sleep in the living room. Don't fall asleep in the living room. So to answer all y'all questions, I have no idea. I have no idea if they were talking in German, if they were talking in English. I just know I'm trying to fight for my life to get up out of that sleep paralysis situation.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I just came back from a walk, so I look horrible. I'm so sorry. But I'm from a suburb in Illinois, and my parents bought this house a couple months before I was born. And my sister, she's 3 at the time, they put her in one of the rooms. And a couple weeks into living there, she runs out of the room. She's screaming, "There's a lady in my closet." And my parents are like, you're dreaming, you know, it's in your head, you know, you're 3. And she said, "No, there's a lady in my closet." So they go and check, and there's nobody in the closet. But my sister refused to go into that room after that. So guess who got the bedroom? I did. So I'm now in that room, and you know, I don't
really remember my childhood until like I was like maybe like 6. That's when I started getting memories. But one night, parents are sleeping and I hear like crashing coming from the laundry room downstairs. It was like one of those like bi-level homes. And my sister hears it, so we both come out of our rooms. Our parents are dead asleep, and we had those stackable, colorful containers that like pull out that were on like the plastic trays. Those were being yanked out and like thrown into the laundry room floor. And my sister and I were about to go downstairs to go check it out, and we had one of those big box TVs that had like the speaker, like one of those big ones. And this is the 90s. And we go down and we see the TV in the corner and there's something hovering over the TV. And we're hearing crashing as this is all going on. So we were like, nope. We booked it. And I went to my sister's room because she was scared of my room. And I went to her room and we just, took cover together. We were terrified. So the years go on and there's still some like stuff going around. And my dad's in like denial. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And my mom now that we're out of the house, she's like, oh yeah, definitely there's something there. But at the time, she's like, you girls are just watching like too much TV. And I'm like, Ma, I'm watching SpongeBob. So SpongeBob's not scary except for that maybe one episode with the hashling and slasher. Besides the point, as the years go on and I'm in the scary room, I woke up one night screaming because there was this man in the corner of my room with just head, shoulders, and straight down. And I'm screaming, and my parents come in. They're like, whoa, 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 what? My sister follows in, and she sees it, and she starts screaming. She said, there's a man in the room. And I'm like, there's a man in the room. My parents are like, there's nothing here. So I refused to sleep in that room for a little bit because there was every night, there was head, shoulders, straight down. That's it. Darker than the dark. And that's when I started sleeping with a nightlight. And I slept with a nightlight until like 3 years ago because this shit scared me so bad. So now it's junior high and I'm starting to make friends. And there's this one girl that I invite over for a sleepover. And I haven't told anybody anything that's been going on in the house because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. So I invite her over and I'm like, you know what? You could change in my room. I'll change into my pajamas in the bathroom and then we'll, come back and do sleepover stuff. And not even 2 seconds of me being in the bathroom, she's banging on the door. And I open the door. She has no pants on. She's crying and shaking. She said, there's a man in your room and I want to go home. And so then I'm looking at her like, oh my God, you're seeing it too. So my mom comes up because she hears my friend freaking out and she asks what's going on. She's like, there's a man in her room. I want to go home. And my mom's like, well, it's 11:30 at night. We can't really bring you home right now. Let's just sleep downstairs. So I'm like, okay, now I know I'm not crazy. Me and my sister are not crazy if we're all seeing the same thing. So things just start getting weirder throughout the house. My dad even said that he's felt like there was somebody sitting on the edge of the couch with him. Your hair just sticks up in this house. You hear voices, you hear whispering. Things are constantly getting knocked off of shelves in the middle of the night. Our fridge would open and close. Just so many weird occurrences to the point where my mom, we had I'm not Catholic, so is it a deacon? We had somebody from a Catholic church that worked at the Catholic church, our neighbor. He came over and he blessed the house because it was getting that bad. And that didn't work. We think it made it worse. And also, when this is all going on, the show Ghost Hunters on Sci-Fi is getting really popular. So my sister's friend ends up buying... Ghost Hunters had like this like ghost hunting kit. So she bought one just for her. And she's like, we know your house has some weird shit going on. Let's have like an investigation. And my dad traveled a lot when I was younger. So there was no men in the house. It was just my mom, me, my sister's friend, and my sister. And she brings over all the equipment and we're like getting all hyped up. We're like, we're gonna catch something. We're gonna catch something. And my mom, I remember she's standing on the stairs. It's like one of those bi-level houses, So she's standing on the stairs and us being Midwesterns, we had a plastic bag full of plastic bags hanging on the banister. And I remember she's like, you girls better not be loud. I don't want to hear you guys screaming because you're freaking yourselves out. You know, whatever you do, just be chill about it. And after she stopped saying that, the bag on the banister starts violently swinging. My mom looks at it and goes, I'm going to bed. So then she goes up and we start our investigation. My room always had the most activity, of course. So we set up the EVP recorder in there, and there was like that thermal temperature. My room was like 35 degrees colder than the rest of the house. And so we set it up and we went downstairs and we just hung out downstairs. And we let that thing go for, I think it was like 7 hours of recording. So then the next day, my sister's friend went home and she's listening through the entire tape. And later on that night, she's like, you got to hear this. So she comes over and she plays the recording. And on the recording, there is a man. It's like a weird, like, I can't even recreate it, but it's like this weird, like, grumbling, like, growling almost. And on the recording, it said, I did it. I killed her. So we're like, okay, what the fuck? So we're going crazy, and we start talking more about it to our family. And my uncle goes, oh, well, you know, your neighborhood used to be called West Haven. And this girl I actually knew was murdered there. It's a very horrific story, so I won't get into it. So we're like, there's no way. So we went to the library and we looked up the archives. Sure enough, there was a girl that was unalived on our property. So we start piecing together. We don't even know if this is like legit or not, but we're thinking that the lady in the closet was the teenager that unfortunately lost her life. And to my sister being 3 years old, that's a lady, you know, but it's a teenager. But we think the woman in the closet, it was her. And we think the guy that we've been seeing in the corner was the killer. So that's just our little own speculation of that. But after living with the evidence and the information that we gathered, we were freaked out, but we just kind of made peace with it. You know, we'd be downstairs middle of the summer, late at night, and we would hear like somebody coming down the stairs. We thought it was our dad because we woke him up, and no one ever came down. My grandmother ended up being in hospice at our house, and that's when the activity really upticked. I remember standing in my room looking at a necklace that my grandma like just gave me, and I saw from here down run to my parents' bedroom, but no one was upstairs. So we sold the house about 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, and we moved to Michigan, and I still go home from time to time, and I go drive past our old house because we were there for 18 years, you know, we're still very much connected to it. And one of the last times I drove past it, I saw somebody peeking out the window like that. So yeah, that's my story. That was my entire childhood. And now I deal with some paranormal stuff, but not as much as I did back in Illinois. So there's that.
So this person is asking people to tell their ghost stories that sound not true at all. And I grew up in a haunted house, so I have quite a few of those. So I grew up in a suburban neighborhood in New Jersey. There was really no reason we thought our house would be haunted, but it was really fucking haunted. There was only one family that lived there before us, and I don't think any of them died in the house. So I'm in my bed. It's like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm probably like in middle school or early high school, and I have my door closed because I slept with the light on because I was afraid of the dark, because you would too if you lived in a haunted house. But my parents didn't care. They were like, we need to sleep in the dark, and their bedroom was across from mine, so if I slept with the light on, I had to keep my door closed. So my door's closed, chilling, playing video games in my room, in my bed, and the door opened, just like a smidge. It opens a smidge. And at first I think it's my dad on the other side of the door because I see kind of a masculine figure. I see facial hair. I'm like, okay, that's probably my dad. And so I'm like, okay, Dad, I'm going to bed. I'm closing my DS. I was not closing my DS. And I'm like, I'll go to bed soon. And then it starts laughing at me. Not like laughing, but like a chuckle, like a hee-hee. And I'm like, haha, yeah, Dad, I'm going to bed, I promise. And then my door opens even more. And I'm like, ooh, that's not my dad. That is not my father. About a year or two later, the movie Insidious came out. And if you know the movie, you know exactly where I'm going. This person on the other side of the door had like dark maroon skin and had like bushy hair, bushy beard, and like yellow eyes. And I'm just sitting there in my bed, stunned. This thing is still like chuckling at me. It's like, hoo 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 hoo. And it's not sleep paralysis. Like, I can move. I just don't want to. I'm like terrified. And it keeps laughing until it goes, shh, and then closes my door. And I never saw it again. Never had saw anything like that ever again until I saw Insidious and I was like, oh my God, that's the guy. Obviously not based on me or anything real, but like it was the closest thing I had seen to what I saw that night. But yeah, I just remember going back to playing Dragon Quest IX after because I was terrified. So thank you, Dragon Quest. Love you. I just woke up and I'm going to answer a couple more questions and say a couple more stories about the house I grew up in. Leave my unibrow alone. Leave her alone. She's beautiful. She's beautiful to me. Okay, back to the ghost. So a lot of it was hearing things. I remember being like 10 or 11 and one night footsteps just happening every night for years, where my bedroom was on the top of the stairs. So it was the first bedroom on the second floor of our house when you like made a left. And so I was kind of pissed because like if someone broke in, it was like, I'm the first to get robbed. Fuck me, right? What did you say fuck me for? And so one night I hear someone like stomping up the stairs, like starts at the bottom of the stairs, and it's a specific pattern. It stomps in front of my room after coming up the stairs, goes into the bathroom next to my room, and then goes into my parents' room. So I'm like, oh, it's my dad. And then it starts at the bottom of the stairs again. I'm like, okay, my mom. And it starts at the bottom of the stairs again. I'm like, I'm running out of relatives in this house. And it just keeps going and going. And always starting at the bottom of the stairs. And there's like no pipes there, like throughout the stairs. I mean, I guess in the bathroom. But it was just so specific. And then when I would open my door to check if someone was outside, it would stop. And then I'd close my door and it would resume exactly where it left off, whether it was on the steps, on right outside my door, or in the bathroom, etc. It would just start over. I would also hear kind of like mumbling, like as if there was like a TV on in another room, kind of, you know how it says like, like people having a conversation, but it's muffled. And I would literally go out of my, like sneak out of my room and tiptoe around my house to make sure nobody was watching TV. And even if it was like, oh, they heard me come out of my room and turned off the TV or muted it, I would hear it when I was home alone. So it wasn't just when other people were home. I was left home alone a lot, especially because I was homeschooled up until 8th grade. So more so in middle school because I was older and I could kind of take care of myself. My parents would like leave me home alone to like do my schoolwork, and they'd go do their errands, go to work, etc. And I would leave my door open so that I could hear if someone came to the door or if my parents came home and needed help, or God forbid somebody broke in. And I would hear like my mom come home. Like I would hear keys jingling. I'd hear her cough or sneeze. You know how you know people's specific coughs and stuff like that. I would hear her and I'd say, hi, Mom. And then there'd be no answer. And I would look out the window and there'd be no cars in the driveway. I'd go downstairs, nobody would be there. I would also hear doors opening by themselves, like the pantry door or the door to the basement or like the bathroom downstairs. I'd hear as if someone was like washing dishes. So how creepy would it be if there was someone up there? But I would hear like dishes moving around, the sink turning on and off. So thanks for doing my dishes, I guess. But it was kind of rare for me to see things. I heard things most of the time. Like I remember There was one time where I had to get up for something. Again, it was when I was homeschooled, so it probably wasn't for school. It was probably for like church or something, when my parents were like, you need God in your life. And I was like, no. So I was just like chilling in bed, not wanting to get up. And I hear right next to my face, I hear, get up, in this like really, really deep voice. And I sprint downstairs, and everybody is downstairs. Everybody in my house is downstairs on the other side of the house. Like, nobody would have had the time. I would have seen them. Nobody would have had the time to sprint from my room downstairs without me seeing them. Another time that I heard something very specific, like a specific sentence or phrase said to me, I was having lunch, and what I would do when I was homeschooled, when I was older, because it was more independent at the time, is I would do half my subjects in the morning, have lunch, and then finish everything else after lunch. So I was having lunch, and I was getting the rest of my stuff to bring up to my room to finish school for the day, and I'm walking out of the kitchen, and I hear, don't look back. And it's like, again, right in my ear, but it sounds kind of like it's in a walkie-talkie, like it's muffled. And the only other person who was home was my mom, and she was upstairs on the other side of the house. None of the windows were open. And again, it was like right in my ear. It wasn't like, oh, it was outside. It was like right in my ear. And the only reason it scared me, other than, it's a random voice in my ear, is because behind me was this bay window in our kitchen that I was always terrified of. I never saw anything in it, but I knew that if I did see someone standing there, I knew that guy has to be like Slender Man fucking tall, because that window was like 10 feet off the ground. So if I saw someone like eye level with me, I knew that they were a really tall fucker or like had a ladder. I don't know. Ladders are kind of scary, I guess, but it always freaked me out. And so I turned around because I'm stupid, and I was like 11 or 12 at the time. And I didn't see anything, but still freaked me out. But yeah, we moved out of that house when I was 17, turning 18. It was right before I went to college, and then we moved to Florida. And we bounced around places in Florida, and only one of them was like creepy. Like the house my parents live in now, totally normal. I'm like, wow, must be nice. But also like the place I live in now is completely fine. I had a couple of experiences in college that were kind of funny and weird and spooky, but nothing as terrifying as the house I grew up in.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So the night before my 16th birthday, I had something come into my bedroom. So I'm going to preface this by saying the night before my 4th birthday, my mom's mom passed away. So it's the middle of the night. I didn't have a clock in my room, so I'm going to guess by how long it took for the sun to come up that it was probably around 4 o'clock in the morning. And at this point in my life, I had 2 cats, and they slept in bed with me with the door closed. And I woke up because they were both absolutely freaking out. And at the foot of my bed is a woman. She is turned away from me. She's got long, like, black hair, white nightgown. First, I think it's my mom, and then I realize this woman is, like, wet, like soaking wet. And she gets up, and when she stands up, it freaks one of my cats out, and she scratched me, which is how I know I wasn't asleep during this, because the next day, still had the scratch. And she kind of turns and starts to walk towards, the side of the bed that I'm on, kind of turn the corner and come up towards, like, the head of my bed. And when I see her face, I freeze. It can't move, can't blink, like just staring like straight ahead. Won't really like look at her after I saw her face. And her skin is like a bluish gray color. Her eyes are completely black, and she has like, all of her teeth are all pointed to like sharp points, and she is like smiling this like crazy big smile towards me as she's looking at me and moving up towards my face. And she gets next to my head and she kneels down and is just staring at me. And I don't move for hours, it felt like. And then the sun finally starts to come up, and when it does, she stands up and turns around towards the wall, and there's a door there that goes into the attic, and she just like walked straight through the door. And as soon as she's gone, I am like up out of my bed, door open, bolting down the steps to go to my mother. And I am like visibly upset as I tell her, you know, what happened. And she starts to get upset and tells me that she thinks it's her fault because the night before, the night of my grandmother's like death anniversary, she had like kind of prayed, reached out to the universe and asked for a sign that there was like a life after death, that my grandma was okay, asked for my grandma to like speak to her, and she felt like, you know, she opened a door for this thing to come into our house. Unfortunately, this is not the only time that something has happened to our family. My son, when we lived in my mom's house later when he was 2, and this is a different house, had multiple experiences with something in the home. My mom's house has its own thing going on. There's like multiple stories I could tell you of things happening in that house. My great-grandma's house had multiple things going on where multiple family members witnessed or experienced something. Even when my mom's dad passed away a few years ago, there is a recording that you can hear on the recording, like ghosts or spirits or something like talking to my grandpa as he dies, including my mom's mom. So if you want any story times about any of those, let me know in the comments. So we just had something happen in our house literally like a few minutes ago. So we're upstairs, shower time for everybody. My youngest son is sitting in bed with me talking about Mother's Day. My 2 daughters are in the bathroom in my room. One's in the shower, one's brushing her teeth. And my oldest son is in the hall bath taking his shower. And he says that he heard the door shake first, but him, me, my son, my other son, heard something like, it sounded like something like slammed into the door, like punched the door like really hard. I hear him call out. I'm thinking like it's him. He called out and was like, did somebody just hit the door? And I just kind of like played it off with everybody and just kind of made some excuses. And I've gotten everybody through the shower except for my youngest son who's in right now, and just told them to go downstairs and have my youngest son showering right here. But that just happened. So if it was paranormal, it's not just my daughter anymore. My uncle captured a picture of my great-grandmother in the window of her old home years after she had passed. I'm going to show that picture in a minute, so if you don't want to see it, I would scroll. It is a little scary. She moved into this house in 1950, and when she passed, the house went on to belong to her daughter, my great-aunt Nancy, my grandmother's sister, and my great-aunt Nancy's husband, Uncle Franklin. This photo was taken after my Uncle Franklin had died, the day of his funeral. At that point, his wife, my great-aunt Nancy, had already passed away as well, so no one was in the house when this picture was taken. My uncle stopped by the house to take pictures of it because my Aunt Nancy's daughter planned to sell the home, and he was taking pictures of the exterior for that purpose when he caught this photo. So here's the photo. You can see her glowing eyes, her nose, the outline of her hair, clothing. As you can tell, she is mostly see-through, as she is as dark as the room she's in, which lights were off in the house, obviously, as no one was there. This is a picture taken in pretty rapid succession. In the first one, she's not there, and the second one she is, and in the third one, she is gone again. This is the first, apparition that we've caught on camera. We do have other photos taken back in, the 90s. So that would have been on hard photo of orbs floating around my grandmother's grave when her headstone was put in place, as well as orbs around members of our family. I am working on getting copies of those. I'm sorry, her little photo keeps popping up and it scares me. I am working on getting copies of those, and we'll post them when I have them. And I am also going to post some more stories about the house that this picture was captured in, because there are a lot.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
This is like my third or fourth attempt recording this, and I'm gonna get it right, and I'm gonna fucking remember everything, and I'm gonna tell it in order this time. I'm gonna do it. Okay, let's start off with me being born. Okay, we're gonna start with me being born. From the ages of as early as I can remember until 10, I would have night terrors. Night terrors, not nightmares where something would get me and I would shoot out of my sleep and I would cry a little bit like a little kid. No, night terrors. Like horror movie nightmares. I would sit up, I would be dead asleep, and I would scream and cry at the top of my lungs. And nobody could wake me up. And the night terrors were always in setting. It wouldn't be like I was getting drowned out at the beach or I was getting stabbed at the grocery store. It would be something's in the room with me right now trying to get me. Or I'd be in my house or in the house and something would be trying to get me. And I would scream and cry for hours. My parents couldn't wake me up and they would just have to wait for me to stop. And I would be heavily breathing and then it would just end and I would fall back asleep finally. So that being said, I would have these all the time. So it seemed like everywhere I went, I thought the place was haunted. Whether it was my dad's house, my mom's house, my grandpa's house, I would always be like, oh my God, it's haunted, whatever. So nobody would believe me anymore as I got older. So fast forward to when I'm 13, 14, my family has a house out on Long Island. And we would always have big parties on the weekends. Family, friends, as many people as you could fit in the house, we would fit in it. And it didn't matter where you would sleep. You'd find a place to sleep, whether it was outside, inside, on the roof, upstairs, downstairs. It didn't matter. You'd find a place to sleep. And there's one night in particular, I chose the kitchen table. And I chose the kitchen table because we had benches with cushions on it, and it was like in the corner, so it was snug. It was nice, you know. All right, I completely forgot I lost my train of thought, so we're gonna try that again. Okay. So yeah, it was snug. It was a good spot to sleep, and the kitchen table was here, and there was a basement door, and the basement door opened up pretty much to the kitchen table. It was, you walk out of the basement door, it's right to the right. It's right there. So that's where I'm sleeping. And on the wall next to the basement door, there was this piece of wood that was left by the previous owners that we never painted over. For some godforsaken reason, we never painted over this. And there was names. You know, you would do the height as kids growing up, or at your grandma's house, you would have the height, and you would have Chris was this tall this year. Chris grew this many inches to the next year. There were names that went up. And then there was one name that didn't go up anymore. It just stopped. Take that as you will. Meaning that this person didn't happen to grow up anymore. Okay. So I'm sleeping at the basement door pretty much. I have full sight of the basement door, the living room, whatever. But the basement door. Down into the basement is where all my cousins were sleeping. And my cousin was sleeping on the futon. And the futon room, the door to the futon room, was the foot of the steps. So you walk out of her room, up the stairs, that's where I was sleeping. So I'm asleep. And keep in mind, I'm 14 now, I think, around there. 14, 15, whatever. But I'm not having these night terrors anymore. Like, those are gone. I would have a little nightmare, and I would be able to handle it. You know, I'm a big boy now. But I wasn't having night terrors. Like, I wasn't screaming for help anymore. But I would have a little nightmare there, too. Here and there, whatever. But this night, I'm sleeping on the bench, and I wake up. But I'm not woken up. Nothing jolts me out of my sleep. I naturally wake up. And it's middle of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the basement door is slowly sliding open or swinging open. And I'm looking at it. And I'm like, okay, well, somebody has to be coming out of this door. It would be a little weird if this door was opening and nobody was there. That'd be a little more concerning. But no, a little girl walks out of the basement. And my cousins None of them were little girls. The only girl that was there was my 20-year-old cousin, who will be in the story later. This little girl walks out, and she just walks by. She just, boop, boop. I'm staring at her, and I'm trying to figure out who it is. So I finally just ask her, who are you? And she looks at me, or to the right, whatever. She looks at me, and she just walks through the wall. Just right through the wall. Looks me dead in the face, and I don't remember any facial features, but she just walked directly through the wall, and I passed out. I didn't even react. Like it's like a horror movie scene where something happens and they just pass out. I just passed out. I just went back to bed. I didn't react. I didn't get up and look where she went, because she walked out the back door to the deck. And I didn't get up and I didn't look, and I just out cold. So I wake up the next day and I'm in the kitchen, mind you. So everybody's convening there the next morning. And obviously I'm going to tell everybody that a little fucking girl just walked through the wall last night. But I had night terrors growing up, so nobody ever believed anything I said anymore. So I tell this story, and nobody believes me. I go outside. I'm just hanging out on the deck. Whatever. It's a nice day. 15, 20 minutes later, I hear my cousins and my family saying, you got to tell Dean. Dean just said the same thing. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I walk back into the kitchen, and my cousin, who was sleeping in the futon room at the foot of the at the bottom of the basement steps, she goes, Dean, a little girl came to me in my sleep last night and told me to get out of her house. Screamed in my face this close to get out of her house. And I go, was it a little black-haired girl with straight black hair? She goes, yeah. I go, that is the same exact little girl that walked up the basement steps and then phased through the back door and disappeared into the night, and then I passed out. It was great, because my entire life I've been telling stories about ghost shit and nobody ever believed me, and it was the only time in my life that somebody backed me up. And my family to this day cannot explain it. We don't have the house anymore, so if anybody has, lives there now, I'd love to talk to them and see if they have interaction with this little girl. But completely unbelievable.